Hello, everybody. I've been talking about the house I grew up in Chester, Georgia, and some of the mysterious and unexplained things that happened there. Uh, Today, I'm going to change it up a little bit. I was thinking I have a friend, good friend of mine, that had a house or lived in a house at one time over in Danville, Georgia. This was years ago, and he had told me several stories about things that happened in that house. It's been so long ago, I had forgotten what all he had told me. So I called him up and ask him if he would refresh my memory on some of those things. So I thought I'd share some of those with you today. And so he started telling me. He told me three things. Plus, he told me about a friend of his that had a strange thing to happen. But the first thing he said that ever happened in his house, first thing he ever saw was that he was in bed one night. So they had two closets. They had a his and hers closet. And they had in the closet, they didn't have light switches. It was an old house, and it had the pull string. You know, you got just a bare bulb with the fixture screwed into, and it's got a chain, and you tie a string to it and pull the string. He said there were two closets in there, and one night the closet lights, this closet light just started flashing, and then it would stop. Then the other one would flash on and off, on and off, on and off, and then it would stop. Then it would go back to the other one. He said, and that just, they would alternate. And I asked him, I said, what in the world did you do? He said, well, I just put the cover over my head and went back to sleep. Me personally, I don't think I could have gone back to sleep after seeing that. But he said, and said the next thing, another thing that happened in the house. At the time, it was their first child was small, was a baby, and they had a room. He said it was a shotgun house. You had to go through one room to get to another room. And one of the rooms that was their son's bedroom, but he didn't actually sleep in there. They used it. They called it the changing room because all they would do is use it to go in there and change his diaper. That's all they ever used it for. And he said that he would go in there, and the blinds would be open. Like, you know, you got the twist thing. Somebody twisted the blinds open. He said he would close them, and he'd ask his wife, did she open the blinds? And she would say no, she had not opened them. He said that was back and forth. Said every time they would go in there, those blinds would be open, and they never opened them. He said one day they came home, and all of the blinds in the house were open, which is, oh my goodness. And he also told me that they would have things go missing in the house. They would put their keys down on the table and get up the next day and the keys would be gone. So what they did, they said that they just wanted to test some things out, you know, because sometimes you can think you're absent-minded, you may have misplaced something, you think you put it somewhere and you didn't. So what they started doing is they would take things like their glasses and they would intentionally put it on the counter before they went to bed. And they would get up the next day and it would be gone. And he said it's not like something that we knew. This was not something that we maybe, you know, just laid down somewhere and forgot where we put it. He said because we did this intentionally just to see if it would get gone. And he sure enough, he said they would put something on the counter and it would disappear for 2 or 3 days and then it would be back. And he said that they did that several times. And you know that's I've heard that kind of thing before. It's like the story I was telling you about the man that bought the truck. Well, he told me one more story about a friend of his that lived in a house over in Gray, Georgia. And I guess he was, I don't know what age his friend was, or it was many years ago because this was back during the time of MySpace. And you know how long ago that's been. That was before all the other social media platforms. But he said that his friend was sitting looking at his computer, looking at MySpace, and his computer was against the wall, so he was facing the wall, and the door was behind him. He said he was sitting there and he would hear footsteps walk up to him and then walk away. He would look and there'd be nobody there. Footsteps would walk up to him and walk away. One thing about the house he lived in, he said there was a Civil War era cemetery about 100 yards from the house back in the woods. There was no road going to it. You had to actually walk through the woods to get to it. But after he heard those footsteps for a few times, He said it felt like something had just burned his back, just like stuck an iron to it. So he got up and left out of there. And he went and told his granddaddy about it. And his granddaddy was like, "Oh, there ain't nothing up there. There's nothing in that room." He said, "Granddaddy, it feels like something had burned my back." And it said he pulled his shirt up. And when he did, there were 3 claw marks all the way from the top to the bottom to the small of his back. And said his granddaddy called his mother and said, "You need to get over here. Something's going on." And he told me that his friend left that house, moved in with his granddad, and never went back, which I don't blame him. And that got me to thinking, I had said in an earlier video that I'd never encountered anything that seemed evil, but when he told me that story, it brought to mind another time that my older brother, actually had 3 claw marks on his back, and he swore he had no idea where they came from. He said he woke up and they were there, and they were pretty significant. They were from the shoulder blade and probably about 10 to 12 inches down his back, and it was three claw marks, and they were pretty deep. So some things actually are physical, and that's even more terrifying. But yeah, that was just something I thought of today. I thought about his house, and I said that was kind of interesting because it's not just me, and not just the house I grew up in. There's other people that I know, and he had stories from somebody else that he knew. So if anybody has any stories or any suggestions or any comments about it, just leave it in the comment section. Y'all have a good day.